Well, good evening, good people. Mark Holmes here, and as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. Hope everybody's having a great day. We've got the Green Bay Packers versus the Lions in Detroit coming up. We'll be live streaming that in about a half hour from now. Should be an interesting game. I'm rooting for the Lions. I just am. I need the Lions to be the number one seed and knock out the Eagles. I cannot stress how much I cannot stand if the Eagles make the Super Bowl. I just can't do. I can't do it. So we've heard about Zach Martin. Zach Martin is going to be having season-ending surgery on his right ankle. He is done for the year. His contract technically is over, but if the Cowboys don't release him by day 5 of the NFL league year, then technically he is still employed by the Cowboys and will be owed $40 million in 2026 unless they renegotiate his contract. More than likely, it sounds like, at least what you're hearing from his teammates, like Micah Parsons, that he is going to retire. Now, here's where we are. For the first time in forever, and I really need to go back and find out, but we can go back to the Tony Romo years and where we would start the offseason like $25 million over the cap. The Cowboys have made some contracts that didn't pay off, from way back, from Marion Barber to Miles Austin. And, you could go through with the Jay Ratcliffe, the Terrence Newmans, even the Des Bryants and the Tony Romo ones that left a lot of dead money. And the Cowboys have always, every year, been chasing and trying to catch up on these. Well, this year has been the reset year. There's a lot of misinformation about Dak and CD's contract. Those two contracts actually freed up more money. For the first time, we're going to be starting out the season with $21 million in the bank, rolling over with the $24 million that is already projected to be cap space. It's $45 million right there. Last year we started the offseason, I believe, $20 million over the cap. So we are literally $65 million different from where we were starting off last season. The thought is that the Cowboys will use some of that money along with, potentially triggers with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb's contracts that they can flip, just basically saying we're just doing the restructuring. Doesn't change how much Dak is owed or anything else. It's a tool used and afforded by teams to be able to use their voidable years to spread the money out, take smaller hits to try and make moves, because ultimately what the NFL wants is they want teams that were bad last year to be good this year. So that way there is the air of mystery of who's going to be good and keeping everybody relevant and watching. If you have, 4 or 5 teams that are juggernauts and none of these other teams have any chance in the world, well, it's great for those 5 teams. But for the rest of the league, they kind of tune out because they know they've got no chance in hell. So I was sitting here getting ready, setting up for my live stream, and Mike Fisher was live, for all the fish heads and things. And I was listening to him while I was setting up, and he's talking about potential players, the big fish that the Cowboys might be in, from the insinuation of Dak Prescott, when he was asked about would he consider reconstructing his contract, if that, poker piece came there, of course, and he's basically saying, I don't think we're going to need to do that because of what they've already done, which kind of insinuated that he's got a little bit more of the plan that he's not sharing. So to make a long story short, Mike Fisher was saying, could one of the big pieces be a Stefon Diggs? Stefon Diggs, who'll be 31 years old, who's currently injured and out for the rest of the year. Injured, that's right up the Cowboys' alley. With the Houston Texans, probably not going to be returning because they basically structured his contract so it's only really for 1 year, in which case he may be a free agent again, second year in a row. Because he's injured, of course, that means a discount because he's 31 years of age, of course, and that has to be taken into consideration too. And Mike Fisher believes that the lure of playing with his brother and America's team, which is, you're going to get a lot of publicity, that it may be advantageous for Diggs to want to be here and looking at him to be like your number 3 wide receiver. Well, if we look at Stefon Diggs through the course of this year, his last game was October 27th against the Colts. He had 3 TDs, 496 yards on 47 receptions, averaging 10.6 yards per reception. Not, incredible or anything like that. 8 games, that's about 60 yards a game. But if you're talking about production of that, let's go back for a minute here. Let's think about Michael Gallup last year and Jalen Tolbert. Our number 2, I'm sorry, no, that was the year before. Our number 3 wide receiver last year had less than 496 yards. I'm thinking actually about the year before when we had Noah Brown and Michael Gallup there, that both of them were under 500 yards for the season. So when you look at it and say you got 500 yards in 8 games, well, he's on pace for a 1,000-yard season. And if you could get that kind of production from your number 3 wide receiver, that would be a no-brainer. Now, the big question we have to all ask here is, because when we look at the Cowboys' track record, during the early 2000s, the Cowboys, they made a lot of moves. They tried to get Roy Williams. They traded 2 number 1s to get him. They brought in T.O. They brought in Aaron Glenn. I'm sorry, Aaron Glenn. No. Damn, that's not his right name. They brought in the other Roy Williams, the wide receiver, and they made a lot of moves in free agency trying to get good. And they got away from that with Jason Garrett. And they hadn't gotten anybody since Greg Hardy and Brandon Carr. That's the major free agency moves they've done in the last 12 years. Brandon Carr, cornerback, and Greg Hardy, a defensive end that was crazy. Everybody else has been basically a veteran minimum type guy. So the question is would the Cowboys actually go a little bit bigger into free agency? That's the real question. I don't know. I would hope they would, but we'll have to wait and see. Alrighty, good people. I'll see you guys in about a half an hour. Peace out.